Estrogenic chemicals. These are chemicals that change our hormones so much that they give us man boobs and change the shape of our sausage and eggs, if you get my meaning there, right? These are chemicals that make us infertile, meaning that they decrease the quality of our sperm so much that we can't have babies anymore. Do I have your attention yet? This sounds like such a boring topic, I know, I understand, but this is so important for the reasons I've just mentioned now, okay? And there's a lot to do. Okay, there's a lot to mention here, and the primary resource I've used for this on the screen behind you guys is a book called Estrogeneration: How Estrogenics Are Making You Fat, Sick and Infertile by Anthony G.J. PhD, okay, president of the International Medical Research Collaborative, okay? So it's a legit resource, right? You can tell by all those little details there that he's a legit person, right? Good book to read, by the way. It's very entertaining, and it also has all the graphs and lists of chemicals in there. But not to overwhelm you in one video, I'm going to break this down into a series, like 2, maybe 3, 4 videos. And I'm going to break this whole topic down into things that I've learned that I'm going to pass on to you, things to avoid, alternatives to use, and the ways to navigate life as to, avoid these kind of chemicals in our life and avoid the effects that it has on us. Okay? So without further ado, let's jump into video number 1, which is going to be about food packaging. I'll give you a little bit of a teaser for the other videos. These are the topics I'm going to go through, right? So food packaging, that includes things like coffee cups, tin cans, talking about BPA, the alternatives we can use. Video number 2, so food itself. There are certain foods that will have estrogenic effects that I want to talk about. Mold, things like this in drinking water and shower water, these kind of effects, right? Video number 3, so the temperature of our testicles, things like this, that can affect us. Like, you wouldn't think that, right? Furniture, materials, carpet, clothing, right? Polyester, ingredients in toiletries, soap, sunscreen, things like this. So you can tell there's a lot to talk about. So I'm just going to break it down into video by video, tackling little topic by little topic, so that you have time to kind of adjust to this, because this is the way that I learned about it, right? I learned about one thing, and I was like, okay, I can make that one change in my life, right? It's step by step, one by one, okay? So I don't want to like bombard you with information and for you to think like, oh my goodness, there's no hope left. I've got to change everything in my life. Take it step by step. Let's take it relaxed, have a calm conversation about this. This is going to be a very chatty video. I'm just going to rely on the notes on my screen just to give you the lesson that I've learned in life with that particular thing, okay? So, firstly, food packaging, okay? Ready meals, microwaving in plastic. I used to have loads of ready meals and things like that. Lasagna, little desserts like chocolate cake desserts and like apple pie, kind of apple crumble desserts in these plastic containers. I used to chuck those straight into the microwave them, and eat those straight out of the plastic container, right? That warm, hot plastic container, right? I know a lot of you right now are screaming at me for this because that is very dangerous. A lot of us know that, right? Like, a lot of this stuff is like stuff that we don't know about, but microwaving plastic, I feel like most of us have an idea that that's not necessarily a great thing to do. Some of you don't. I didn't know. My parents didn't know, right? I just lived life like that, right? Eating all of these things out of plastic containers. The plastic leaches into the food especially when it's warm and hot, and we eat that food, and even if you throw away the plastic, it's still in our bodies, right? Scientists are finding small particles of plastic in our poop, right? And that is not a good thing. It gets into our bodies and affects our hormones in the ways that I described at the start of this video, right? So, I'm going to go through all the bad stuff first before I go through the alternatives, right? Just to keep this video very quick and very smooth. I don't want to make this like too long and too inaccessible for everyone to watch here, okay? So, cooking in plastic, right? Microwaving, there's also something called sous vide, which is where you wrap something in plastic and you cook it in like warm or hot water. It's a special way of cooking it that's probably only going to be relevant to 3 of you guys. But that's something that people do that you should probably avoid, right? Hot food and drinks in plastic. So plastic containers, think about like the takeaway containers you get for like a takeaway, or maybe like making tea in a plastic cup. I don't know why you would do that. That sounds disgusting to me, but some people do that, right? Make it in a normal mug. That's a lot safer, right? Plastic water bottles, especially in sunlight. If you leave a plastic water bottle in sunlight on the windowsill or something like that, you've probably been told this before by your mother or someone, that's not so good for you, right? The plastic leaches into the water because of the sunlight, because of the heat, and that's not so good. And how do you know it's not been left in the sunlight before you even bought it, right? In the transportation, in the packaging, how do you know, right? So just to be safe, that's something we avoid. Tin cans, right? Tin cans are actually lined with plastic, right, on the inside. This is actually a very good revelation to make it very food safe for us to eat. It used to be like, if you have a dent in a can, that used to be something that's like, okay, you've got to avoid that because the metal might affect the food in a certain way, but the plastic makes it safer. But the fact that it's plastic leaches into the chemicals from the plastic leach into our food and make it not safe to eat in terms of an estrogenic perspective, right? That will affect our hormones, right? Coffee cups. Coffee cups are not just paper. If they were, they would just leak through, right? They have a very, very, very thin lining of plastic around the edge so that it's waterproof, right? And this, especially with hot coffee, the plastic leaches into your coffee and you drink it. Similar story to the rest of these things, right? Cartons, similar story. Cartons, you might think, oh, that's cardboard, right? Plastic on the inside, similar thing. BPA free, that's no longer relevant, okay? BPA, they have found, so the original study, they found one chemical, BPA, to be a dangerous chemical, right? So they make alternatives like BPS. We have found right now that BPA is just one of a series of chemicals, including BPS, this like so-called alternative, that has very dangerous effects on our body, right? So BPA free is not relevant anymore. Like that, we can't look at that and think, oh, that must be safe completely, right? Avoiding plastics in general is the way to go, and so BPA free isn't a relevant thing to say anymore, right? Plastic spoons and knives, for similar reasons, we get, even in plastic, like chopping boards, right? Small particles of plastic that get into our food and then we eventually ingest them and they affect our hormones in that way, right? So, alternatives now. I gave you a whole list of things that you need to avoid. These are some alternatives that you can use instead of those things. You might be thinking, oh, I've just got to get rid of those things in my life. How can I live without those things? Here's how. Avoid plastic packaging wherever possible. So microwave, takeout meals, things like that. Wherever you can, you might be able to bring in your own packaging, right? And they can like put the food in there, like in certain, maybe like loose fruits, or maybe like even like a takeout shop. Maybe you can try that. I've never tried that before, but maybe you can bring your own ceramic container or metal container. They can put the food in there. I don't know what's possible with that, right? If microwaving and you still want that ready meal lasagna, whatever it is, empty that into a ceramic bowl. Don't leave it in the plastic container and microwave it. Put it in a ceramic bowl. That's a lot safer to do. Don't pack lunch in plastic containers. Your hot food will affect the plastic leaching into it, or even if it's like cold, it will still affect the plastic that gets into your body, and so that's a way to avoid it. Instead, use a non-plastic dish. It might be glass, like I have some containers in my kitchen that are glass with a wooden like lid on it. There might be some like, ceramic, silicone. Silicone is a material that it kind of looks like plastic, but it isn't plastic, and it's been researched to be completely safe, especially when it comes to estrogenic effects, right? Or metal instead. My mum used to give me a metal container where you can like put sandwiches in it and like clasp it on with like little clasps, right? That's kind of cool as well. What else is here? I'm kind of rushing through this because there's so much to talk about. Thermos flask, right? Thermos flask is like a vacuum flask. That's the official term for it, but it has like metal on the inside and it's not plastic, right? And that's safe for you to eat from as well. Even with things like putting them away in the fridge or the freezer, try and use glass, ceramic, metal containers and try and avoid plastic wherever possible, right? I know that some areas it isn't, and I'll talk about that in a second, but avoid it wherever possible, right? Make tea or coffee in non-plastic cups. I talked about this before, so I'll skip past that one. Don't get takeaway cup of coffee at the coffee shop, right? Either sit in where they'll give you a mug to drink from, right? Or bring in your own coffee mug, right? They make these glass coffee mugs with like silicone on the outside and a silicone lid. You can bring that in. People from like the environmental groups make these kind of coffee cups. And so we can benefit from that because we care about our physical health, right? We can use those and bring in the coffee cup and have them fill it up, and then we can take it away, right? Without having to care about the plastic in the paper coffee cups. That is something you can do. Glass water bottles. So I drink like spring water in these glass water bottles. I don't drink it often, but This is what I do now when I drink like spring water you buy from the shop or something like that. And like metal water bottles like this. If you're going to reuse it a lot, then a metal one is something I suggest as well. You can get those easily on Amazon. Very simple to get. Where was I here? Metal. Okay. Metal spoons and knives and wooden chopping boards is the way to go, right? So it's something like this. I have this in my room. This is like a bamboo chopping board and this is like a metal knife. This is what I recommend using. And I've seen kitchens with plastic chopping boards and I'm like, that's not quite great for my food, is it? And so try to make that substitute wherever you can and do that wherever possible. I've been in kitchens where like they've been plastic chopping boards only. And I'm like, what do I do here? So I just use the plates to kind of chop my food up on there because I just didn't want to go with the plastic on that trip, right? So there is one company that I really like that avoid plastic packaging altogether, right? And it's a company called Abel and Cole. I think they are only in the UK, but they're really good. I order fruit from them every week, organic oranges and apples, and they do the packaging in such a way that there's no plastic, right? It's like cardboard boxes, no tape. They wrap it up in string and that's it. There's no plastic involved. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. Again, they come from the perspective of like, environmentally friendly and all that, but for me, I'm like, okay, no plastic with my food. That's better for me, right? I'm kind of selfish in that way, but we kind of need to be when it comes to these kind of things, right? Meat. Meat is the difficult one. Even butchers, they will store their meat in plastic before they have to chop it up and put it out on display, right? Plastic is usually involved in the butcher's process because of food safety regulations, and there's typically not a way you can avoid that, right? When you go to buy the meat at a butcher's, you can bring some of your own containers, and that, mitigates some of the plastic contact in that kind of area. The meat that I get from a farm locally is vacuum packed in plastic, again, because of the food safety regulations, and that's how I have to get it. And that's like the one thing I'm like, okay, I'll leave that be. There's nothing much I can do about that. And so I try to get more meat in like one package, so there's less plastic content in it, right? If I get like a small pack of meat, there's more plastic around that meat than if I get a big pack of meat, there's like less kind of surface area exposed to that plastic, if you know what I mean, if you get what I'm saying there. So to end this video, I just want to say, I know I've been talking really fast in this video. I've mentioned a lot of things. Do not get overwhelmed, okay? Just take one thing and make that one step, baby steps, okay? You might have to keep coming back to this video and doing small things, right? So water bottle, buy a water bottle from Amazon, right? Like a metal water bottle. And that's one step you can take. Replace the plastic chopping boards in your kitchen with wooden ones, right? Maybe stop making tea in plastic cups if you do that, right? Or maybe stop getting coffee in those takeaway cups and perhaps find somewhere to buy your own glass one, right? I don't drink coffee, so that's something that I've not done. And small things like that, small changes, small kind of changes you can make in your life to make it so that it's less plastic and less estrogenic chemicals that you're exposed to. And that will make a dramatic difference to your physical health and your hormonal health as well. And so the changes that I mentioned, the scary changes I mentioned at the start of this video, hopefully you won't be subject to that in your life, right? Like genuinely, I hope and pray for that, right? Because I don't want anyone to come to harm in that way. I think it's a horrible thing that happens to people when it's not quite fair, because it's just the environment that we live in, right? The way that industry has developed, we just have that in our environment now, right? So maybe not your fault, but your responsibility to take care of that and to take care of yourself. So I hope that helps. I hope that hasn't overwhelmed you. I hope that you can take small steps at a time to make changes in your life, to make positive changes in your life. So thank you for watching. Knowledge is power, and the power is yours. I'll see you in parts 2, 3, and maybe 4 as well. Take care. See you in a bit.